November 12, 1993. Denver, Colorado. The UFC is not a polished sport yet. It is a live experiment built around one dangerous question: what really happens when different fighting styles are forced into the same cage? 8 men enter the tournament at McNichols Arena. There are no modern weight classes, no standard gloves, no comfortable round-by-round rhythm. For most of the card, there is no judge waiting to rescue a fighter with a decision. The simplest path out is a finish. And in one of the quarterfinals, Ken Shamrock walks toward Patrick Smith. This fight lasts 1 minute and 49 seconds. That is the crazy part. In less than 2 minutes, it shows the audience a lesson that would take years for the rest of combat sports to accept. If you cannot stop the takedown, the fight you trained for might never happen. Patrick Smith was the local threat. Ken Shamrock was different. He was introduced as a shoot fighter, and that word mattered because most viewers did not fully know what to do with it. Shamrock was not just a boxer, not just a wrestler, not just a karate man, and not exactly the same kind of grappler Royce Gracie was about to make famous. He came from the hybrid world of wrestling, submissions, pancrase, and catch-style finishing attacks. He looked like a bodybuilder, carried himself like a pro wrestler, and fought like a man hunting for a limb. That combination made him one of the most dangerous-looking fighters in the entire first event. Before the bell, the contrast is obvious. Smith is the striker. Shamrock is the grappler with the terrifying stare. The crowd can understand Smith's danger instantly. A kickboxer only has to land once, and the whole cage changes. But Shamrock's danger is stranger. He does not need a clean knockout. He needs one entry, one grip, one transition, one joint exposed for half a second. That is what makes this fight so important. The bell rings, and Smith tries to start the fight on his terms. He throws a big kick, the kind of opening move that says, "This is my distance, this is my range, and you are going to deal with my weapons first." Shamrock refuses the invitation. He ducks under, crashes forward, and turns the fight into grappling almost immediately. That moment is the whole style versus style experiment in miniature. Smith wants space. Shamrock wants contact. Smith wants a striking exchange. Shamrock wants the mat. And the second Shamrock gets through the kick, the fight begins moving in only one direction. Smith goes down, and the crowd has to recalibrate what it is watching. Today, a takedown into top position is normal. Every MMA fan understands the chain: entry, finish, pass, control, ground strikes, submission threat. In 1993, a huge part of the audience was watching those connections form in real time. It was not just that Smith was losing a position, it was that his entire striking identity had been unplugged. On the mat, Shamrock is not gentle or decorative. He starts controlling, pressuring, and making Smith react. He moves through positions with a roughness that looks primitive compared with modern MMA, but the principle is still recognizable. Take away the hips. Keep weight on the opponent. Make the striker carry pressure. Force him to defend before he can attack. Smith is trying to survive, but he does not look comfortable solving the ground problem. That is the real story. He is not losing because he is cowardly. He is losing because the fight has moved into a language he cannot answer quickly enough. Shamrock mounts. He drops strikes. He makes Smith cover. The punches are not the cleanest modern ground and pound, but they do the job early UFC ground strikes often did. They create panic, expose reactions, and make the bottom fighter move in ways he does not want to move. Then Shamrock changes the target. Instead of staying on top and continuing to punch, he spins toward the leg. This is where the fight becomes more than just striker gets taken down. Shamrock attacks the heel hook, and suddenly the danger is not the face, the jaw, or the ribs. It is Smith's knee and ankle. That is a terrifying kind of finish, because the damage can arrive before the casual viewer even understands the danger. A choke looks obvious. a punch looks obvious. A heel hook can look almost quiet until the joint pressure becomes impossible to ignore. Smith taps at 149. Officially, it goes down as Ken Shamrock defeating Patrick Smith by submission heel hook round 1. Historically, it becomes one of the first big warnings of the night. UFC 1 was not going to reward the style that looked best in isolation. It was going to punish the style that could not survive being dragged somewhere else. That is why this result hit so hard. Remember the order of the night. The crowd came in asking which martial art was best. The octagon kept answering a colder question. What happens when your best weapon gets taken away? For Smith, the answer was brutal. The fight never became the kickboxing match he needed. It never became a long-range striking duel. He did not get time to build rhythm, make reads, or prove his toughness over several rounds. Shamrock made one correct strategic choice, forced the range change, and compressed the entire fight into a grappling problem. For Shamrock, this was the perfect introduction. A lot of people remember him for later moments: the Royce Gracie rivalry, the Superfight era, the Dan Severn win, the Lion's Den mythology, and eventually the Tito Ortiz feud. But this UFC 1 fight is where the audience first gets a clean look at the original danger. Shamrock was not only built like a scary athlete, he had finishing tools that were unfamiliar, fast, and nasty. The heel hook is the key detail. In modern grappling, everyone understands that leg locks can change a match instantly. In early UFC, the average viewer did not have that vocabulary. They could see a man punch. They could see a choke. But a leg entanglement turning into a tap in seconds felt like a magic trick with bad consequences. That is why the finish still works on camera. Smith is there, trying to defend in a world that is moving too fast. Shamrock has the leg. The pressure comes on. Smith taps, and the fight is over before most people in the arena have processed what they just saw. The most important part is that Shamrock did not win the tournament. That might sound strange, but it actually makes the story better. Later that same night, Royce Gracie submits Shamrock in the semi-final in only 57 seconds. Royce becomes the defining figure of UFC 1, wins the tournament, and changes the way the world thinks about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But Shamrock's win over Smith still matters because it shows that the grappling revolution was not only one man and one family system. The future of fighting was going to involve wrestling entries, submission chains, leg attacks, pressure, and fighters who could blend ranges. Royce may have been the face of the breakthrough, but Shamrock was. If you were a striker watching UFC 1, Shamrock versus Smith had to feel personal. Because Smith was not some random man from the crowd. He was presented as a legitimate stand-up fighter. He had confidence, size, and the crowd behind him, and none of that protected him once he got put on his back. That is the lasting lesson. Credentials only matter if the fight stays where those credentials work. This is the thread that runs from UFC 1 all the way to modern MMA. Every striker now trains takedown defense. Every wrestler has to learn submissions. Every jiu-jitsu fighter has to learn how to deal with punches. The sport became real when one-dimensional comfort stopped being enough. Shamrock vs. Smith is one of the cleanest early examples. It is not the prettiest fight. It is not the longest fight. It is not even the most famous fight from UFC 1. But it is one of the most educational. It gives you the whole message. In under 2 minutes, distance can disappear, panic can start fast, and a single submission threat can erase a fighter's entire plan. That is why this clip still feels alive decades later. You are watching a sport discover itself. You are watching a crowd learn what danger looks like on the ground. You are watching a kickboxer realize that the octagon does not care what range he prefers. And you are watching Ken Shamrock show before the nickname became myth, why people would eventually call him one of the scariest men of the early UFC. 1 minute and 49 seconds, 1 kick, 1 takedown, 1 violent scramble, 1 heel hook. That is all it took for Shamrock vs. Smith to become a permanent UFC 1 lesson. Drop a comment. Was this heel hook the most underrated finish from UFC 1? Or does Royce still own the whole night? If you want more early UFC deep dives, subscribe and turn on notifications. Next, we can break down Royce vs. Shamrock, Royce vs. Gordeau, or the wild first knockout that opened the entire event.